The new ordinance bans outdoor growing of medical marijuana. That makes it very clear that if marijuana is outdoors, then it would be in violation of the ordinance. We'll be working with our code enforcement officers, our deputy sheriffs, and other agencies for enforcement of that ordinance. So if you're growing outside, you could be cited for that violation. But that applies to the unincorporated area of Shasta County, not the incorporated cities. There needs to be additional code enforcement officers, and of course coming with that is equipment, vehicles, training, and then also additional deputy sheriffs. Even if they were part-time deputy sheriffs for seasonal, still have to get them hired, backgrounded, trained, and that does take some time. And then that $50,000 would not be enough. We would need probably at least 2 deputy sheriffs for every code enforcement officer, and so you could be looking at maybe 6 deputy sheriffs and 3 or 4 code enforcement officers to work together, and that's going to be a price tag more than $50,000.
In terms of the new ordinance, what was Measure A? Yeah, it'll create a very bright line between those operations that are in compliance and those that are not, in the sense that if there are any outdoor plants being cultivated, it's clearly outside of the compliance of our new ordinance. And so we won't need to spend a lot of time on site taking measurements and making sure the fence is high enough and those kinds of things, which really took a lot of time prior. The other thing that might be more of a challenge is securing warrants to go inside of structures if we do get complaints about indoor grows. But we are working on ways to streamline that as well so that we can respond more timely and in a safe manner. Obviously, it'll still require a partnership between the Sheriff's Office and code enforcement.
Now, have you guys either, I guess, allocated additional resources within your own budget, or will you be asking for additional resources or anticipate needing those in any way to, enforce the new regulations?
Yeah, well, we've been instructed by the board to coordinate with the CEO to discuss the resource needs, including personnel and other resources. We're going into the season with the notion that we have in place the staff that we need to do an effective job and to increase our effectiveness as we have over the last 3 years. We do have a new analyst in place, which is going to be very critical in coordinating the effort and moving cases through the process to make sure that things are done timely and filed in a complete form, so that once it does go through a hearing process, everything will be complete. So that ought to help quite a bit.
Now, was that an existing position that you filled, or was that in response to this ordinance?
It was in response to this ordinance and the board's effort to increase the effectiveness of enforcement. And so back in 2012, they allocated 1 full-time code enforcement officer to be out in the field for marijuana specifically. And in 2014, they allocated this analyst position as a backup to the whole program. So between those, it ought to be a great deal of help.
Any idea the associated cost with the analyst and the additional code enforcement officer?
Code enforcement officer, I would put somewhere in the 80,000 probably, and the analyst is probably close to that. So I would say probably $150,000, $160,000 investment.
Okay. And then you were telling me, or I guess you were telling everybody a little bit about the it's the right term, public awareness campaign you guys are going to be doing. Can you tell me a little bit about that? What might be in store? What people can or expect to see and hear around Shasta County?
Yeah, I think that we will, the effort is, or the idea is to get the word out as to what the new ordinance actually contains, what's different now than last year, for instance. And so, yeah, I think it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we do get the word out to both respond to the voters who overwhelmingly approved Measure A, and also to actually let people who are legitimately growing medical marijuana know what the boundaries are. And so it'll be a campaign about knowing what the rules are and staying in bounds. And we will do that through probably leaflets or pamphlets that we could distribute through our office, announcements on our webpage, public service announcements through the radios and perhaps TV even, and the newspapers, to make sure that the word gets out about what the new rules are.
Is that something you guys have started already, or when do you expect that to?
We are starting to work on it. We don't have the products available yet, but we're working through our community outreach or community education, as well as staff with public health community education. So there'll be a joint effort there as well to get the word out.
All right, great.